Gods in Magic the Gathering are entities throughout the multiverse that stand for ideals embraced by the denizens of the planes they rule. Some are just and empathetic towards the plight of mortals, while others are cruel and torturous.
Such are the whims of the gods.
But even gods can fall. With the Phyrexians on the march throughout the multiverse, led by Elesh Norn, even these deities can fall to completion. Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Ether Hub and more Magic the Gathering lore. We've gotten our first glimpse of Elesh Norn's invasion of the multiverse on her mission to complete every plane in existence. In March of the Machine, this campaign reaches the plane of Theros, where even its gods aren't immune to completion. Such is true for the strongest of Theros' pantheon, Heliod, god of the sun. Heliod, the radiant dawn, is twisted into the warped eclipse. The question is, how? How can a god be completed into a Phyrexian? Surely even Elesh Norn shouldn't have that power. In this video, we'll discuss what's been going on with Heliod and how the Phyrexians can complete a god. But first, a word from this video's sponsor. Today's video is sponsored by Bloodline Heroes of Lithis. Dive into this fantasy RPG for Android and iOS devices and explore a beautiful 3D world of champions, kingdoms, and enough fantasy races to fill a multiverse. Orcs, elves, demons, demigods, even lycans, and many more. This game's unique hybrid system allows you to craft your own champion by marrying any two bloodlines. There are over 800 new fantasy hybrids that you can create, merging the best traits, talents, and appearances from each family into something completely new and powerful. Raise your heirs with companions that you can also customize. The stronger your bond, the stronger your offspring. Bloodline Heroes of Lithis is a hero collector RPG with new fantasy characters released often. Build your kingdom, establish your economy, and use strategy to defend your people and your world. Now you can enjoy battling in the Guild War on brand new maps where you can conquer new lands with your fellow guildies and claim rewards you can use to create some of the most unique and powerful hybrid bloodlines. The game has some beautiful 3D graphic scenes as well as a compelling storyline, which I know all of you would particularly enjoy. You can download Bloodline Heroes of Lithis on both Android and iOS for free. And if you use my link in the description below or the QR code on your screen, you'll even get some perks, like resources worth $20 for the next 7 days. The first 20 players who leave their in-game account ID and their username in the comments will receive a free legendary female or companion, the powerful Ugrul, who is one of the strongest warriors capable of carrying you in the game. And now, let's get back to the lore. To understand how a god can fall to Phyrexia, we must first learn about the uniqueness of godhood on the plane of Theros. Gods of Theros are created through faith. Faith of the mortal denizens collect around singular concepts, ideas of the harvest, justice, the sea, the hunt, etc. When enough faith and devotion is collected throughout the unique planar sky of Theros called Nyx, it coalesces into a being, the birth of a new god. Heliod, god of the sun, is the most powerful and influential god of Theros because of the sheer amount of followers and devotion he has accumulated. Everyone everywhere worships the sun in some way. On top of that, Heliod also represents the rule of law, retribution, and the bonds of kinship, gaining him even further devotion. Because of this unique birth, gods of Theros are immune to normal means of mortality. They do not age, they do not succumb to sickness, they are eternal. Often this is indicated on their card as being indestructible. But that's not to say gods of Theros don't die. Because their existence is tied to the devotion of their followers, should a god lose enough devotion, mortals would forget about them, and it would fade from the starry sky of Nyx. Though this is uncommon, as many of the gods represent eternal elements of life. Still, if a god loses followers, they could stop existing, with no one left even to mourn them. Because gods are so influenced by the devotion of their followers, the way in which they worship too can have an impact on the gods. Remember this point for later. Now turning to Heliod specifically. If you're not familiar with his lore, you may be shocked to find out that this white-aligned god of justice and breakfast, yes, even breakfast, is actually the villain throughout the stories of Theros. Because of his station within the Pantheon, Heliod is quite arrogant, and despises those who would put themselves on the same level as the gods. He taught this very lesson to a young Gideon, which resulted in the deaths of Gideon's friends and his planeswalker spark igniting. His jealousy and rage were on full display during the original Theros story, when he got into a feud with the god of the Forge, Perforos. Both were headstrong and stubborn, which resulted in a war in Nyx, which inevitably spilled onto the mortal plane. Since gods couldn't really harm one another, they would target their opponent's followers in a brutal display of callousness, attempting to wipe their followers from Theros and lower each other's devotion. It was this war that a young planeswalker named Elspeth Tirel would find herself stuck in the middle of. At first, Heliod wanted to kill the mortal simply because she accidentally acquired a powerful weapon from Perforos that could tear at the fabric of Nyx. It literally just fell from the sky and Elspeth picked it up. Being a planeswalker, Elspeth's magic was capable of reflecting the powerful beams of sunlight Heliod used to try to incinerate her. Unable to kill her, Heliod made Elspeth his champion in an attempt to control this seemingly powerful mortal. He gifted her the weapon God's End, forged from Perforos' original sword, and set her on a task to kill the meddling satyr, Xenagos. Xenagos, a fellow planeswalker, had learned the terrible secret of the Theros Pantheon's godhood, how it related to devotion. He found their existence laughable when compared to the vastness of the multiverse, knowing they ruled over but just a small, minute part of the greater everything, but acted like they were above all. He set himself to humble the gods, spitting in their face by becoming a god himself, a blasphemous act that Heliod would not abide. Through tricks and manipulation, Xenagos had the entire mortal world of Theros up in revelous cheer, prompted by military victories led by Elspeth. Through this outpour of ruckus behavior, Xenagos channeled the revelry into himself, devotion that fueled his ascension to godhood. Heliod immediately blamed Elspeth for this and set her to kill Xenagos. Fighting alongside her friend, Ajani Goldmane, she would succeed in this task. Xenagos was not a naturally formed god, and thus was unstable in the foreign realm of Nyx, making him susceptible to the Planeswalker's weapon, God's End. During these events, Heliod learned of planeswalkers, and that both Xenagos and Elspeth were such beings. Fearing Elspeth could ascend to the Pantheon much as the satyr had, Heliod killed Elspeth by stabbing her with his own weapon, her soul being taken to the god of the dead, Erebos, into the plane's underworld. This is where the faith of Heliod began to crumble, as Ajani Goldmane, who witnessed the betrayal, traveled throughout Theros preaching against the sun god and hurting his devotion. Fast forward to the story of Theros Beyond Death, the ill-fated set that had almost all of its story lost to time. Yeah, it had no written articles, simply a summary of events, as the fallout from the disastrous War of the Spark was still healing. Here we follow the story of Elspeth, trapped in the plane's underworld, who hatches a bargain with Erebos, god of the dead. They both hate Heliod, and he agrees to revive Elspeth to life in exchange for the fall of Heliod. At this time, Nyx was in full-blown war, gods fighting gods, and the chaos spilled into the mortal realm. Heliod was now mad with power, paranoid at all others he viewed as threats to his throne, now determined to become the sole god of Theros. Using the war as a distraction, Erebos sets Elspeth free with a new weapon, known as Shadow Spear, a dark copy of Heliod's own weapon that commanded so much fear among the mortals. Her legend was well known thanks to the efforts of Ajani, and now the returned warrior claimed to have the one and only cursor, the Sun Spear, and that Heliod wielded a fake. As the story grew among the mortals, more and more power was sapped from Heliod's own weapon. So, when they finally clashed, the Shadow Spear held by Elspeth was in fact stronger through its devotion, and she was able to bring the god to heel. Erebos took the opportunity to shackle the god of the sun into the underworld, freeing Nyx and the mortals from the calamity of Heliod's arrogance. Though trapped in the underworld, Heliod was not forgotten, nor would he be for several generations. So long as people still herald the sun and remembered the wars of Heliod, the god would exist, imprisoned or not. It is in this lowly state that the Phyrexians would find the god weakened and chained. But still, How could they complete a being made of pure devotion? Typically, the pantheon of Theros would be immune to all mortal diseases. This would include Phyrexian oil as well as the completion process. Minor gods, or even weakened gods like Heliod, are no exception. They would still be indestructible. To learn how this is possible, we turn to the card's flavor text. With Ajani Gold made completed and working alongside Elesh Norn, his knowledge of Theros and its gods are put to use. He understands better than most what makes the gods here, and how the Phyrexians could attack them. Complete the faith, complete the god. Complete the god, complete the plane. As their followers' devotion impacts what the gods stand for, Ajani ingeniously attacks the people of Theros with completion, specifically targeting those faithful to Heliod, as it's this god's devotion who's currently at its most vulnerable. As most of the sun gods devoted are completed, they continue to praise him in the name of Phyrexia, fundamentally changing how they worship Heliod. This twisted devotion, believing the god will bring about perfection with the new Phyrexian order, then completes the god himself. He becomes what the new Phyrexian denizens perceive him to be, a god of perfection. And so it was. This is how a god of Theros is completed. While we don't have a lot of insight right now on how much the Phyrexian attack throughout the multiverse will impact these planes, it's easy to see that corrupting what was formerly the most powerful god on Theros will usher in this world's total fall to Elesh Norn. Even the completed Ajani believes this to be the case with the ominous words, "Complete the god, complete the plane." Honestly, with the reveal of this unique card, it answers a very tricky question with a very clever solution. Obviously, attacking a plane like Theros, ruled by indestructible gods who cannot succumb to Phyrexian oil, would be incredibly difficult. Perhaps Theros even being one of the few planes that could successfully repel the Phyrexian invasion, assuming the gods stopped squabbling amongst themselves and actually worked together. As this technique works with Heliod's worshippers, it's clear it'll work on the other gods as well. Since Norn's mission is to complete the multiverse and everyone in it, all denizens of Theros are in danger, which means sooner or later, we will see the completion of the entire pantheon, thus sunsetting the free will of Theros, now ruled by Phyrexian gods all serving the One. Heliod's arrogance has been replaced with blind obedience, a fitting end to a god who demanded subjugation. Now, the only question I have left is, if Theros falls, what happens to the memorial of Gideon Jorah, a true hero of the multiverse, buried and remembered on Theros, his home? Will his memory remain a shining example of heroism on a world twisted by Phyrexians? Or will even his statue become a pawn of Elesh Norn, a new monument to her completed vision? Only time will tell. I want to thank you all so much for watching. If you enjoyed our content, please consider supporting us by leaving this video a like, becoming a subscriber, and of course, sharing it with friends. As always, thank you all so much for watching, and until next time, see ya!